Rita Marley's siblings committed crimes that could have sent them to prison for decades. I am exposing their secret illegal operation that the Marley family tried to bury for years. You must stick around until the end, because the final revelation about their underground activities will shock even the most loyal reggae fans. The hum of London in the early 1980s was not the hum of peace. It was the low growl of buses, the hiss of rain on steel rooftops, and somewhere deep in the urban mist, the quiet defiance of a man soldering wires together by the window of a cramped West London flat. Leroy Lepke Anderson leaned close to the transmitter, his breath fogging the glass, as if his spirit itself longed to break through the static. Outside, the night air trembled with the weight of change. Inside, reggae pulsed from an old turntable, and the revolution waited for its cue. He knew what he was doing was illegal. The government would call it piracy. But to him, it was liberation. Every knob he turned, every frequency he tested, was an act of rebellion. Somewhere beyond those concrete walls, there were people, his people, waiting to hear themselves, to hear their music, their struggle, their laughter, carried across the airwaves. If they won't let us in, he whispered to himself, we'll make our own door. Years before that London night, fate had scattered the Anderson children across oceans. In the sweltering hills of Jamaica, young Rita Marley stayed under the care of her aunt, Aunt Viola, growing up in a world that pulsed to the rhythm of drums and hymns of redemption. Across the Atlantic, her younger siblings, Margaret and Leroy, were tossed between New York's restless streets and London's gray horizon, children of two worlds, but belonging fully to neither. Theirs was not the glamorous side of the Marley legacy. While Rita's voice would later rise beside Bob Marley, igniting stages across continents, her brother and sister would fight a quieter war, the war of representation, fought not with microphones of fame, but with illegal transmitters and stolen air. By the late 1970s, Britain was a land of tension. Riots simmered under the surface. The children of the Windrush generation were rising into adulthood only to find closed doors at every turn. Reggae, that heartbeat of the Caribbean soul, had no place on national radio. The BBC was a fortress of whiteness, rigid, cold, indifferent. Black culture existed in whispers, confined to dance halls and community centers, too raw, too ethnic for polite airwaves. But Leroy Lepke Anderson wasn't interested in politeness. He believed the people deserved to hear themselves. In 1981, he made his stand. From a small backyard in West London, he raised a mast so tall, it seemed to pierce the sky. His equipment was modest, a turntable, a battered transmitter, a few miles of cable, but his vision was colossal. When the signal went live, it didn't travel far, maybe just a few blocks, but the message was unmistakable. From those few blocks came calls, shouts, laughter, and a spark that would soon grow into a cultural blaze. The Dread Broadcasting Corporation, DBC, was born. He had wanted to call it Ribble Radio, but a friend, Mike Williams, joked about flipping the BBC into DBC, Dread Broadcasting Corporation. It was cheeky, rebellious, and perfect. From that day, DBC became the underground's heartbeat, a pirate station for the unheard, the unseen, and the unbowed. Night after night, voices filled the studio. Selectors, poets, dreamers, DJ Cheeky, Douglas Wright, Dr. Wadu, and at the center, Lepke himself, holding it all together. His sister Margaret soon joined him, her presence like sunlight through smoke. She wasn't just another DJ, she was a force. Her charisma melted barriers. Her voice carried authority, warmth, and grace. Under her on-air name, Ranking Miss P, she turned rebellion into rhythm. The walls of the little studio vibrated as she leaned into the mic. "Bless up, my people," she would say, her voice smooth as silk and fierce as fire. This is the sound of the streets, the sound of freedom, the sound they don't want you to hear. Outside, men leaned from windows to catch the faint signal, while car stereos on Shepherd's Bush and Brixton corners echoed with her voice. Reggae had found its weapon and its messengers. But the rebellion came at a cost. DBC was illegal. The Department of Trade and Industry saw it as a threat to public order. Fines loomed, arrest followed. One morning, the authorities stormed the building, seizing DBC's transmitter. They took Lepke in handcuffs. As he was led away, someone asked if he regretted it. His answer was calm. "We have to do this, even if it means prison." They couldn't understand how a black man could build something so technically sound, so powerful. They assumed someone else, maybe Bob Marley's estate, was secretly funding it, but the truth was simpler and more beautiful. DBC was powered not by money, but by love. It was built from scraps and soul. The authorities released Lepke, but the system's disbelief lingered. They could not imagine black creativity existing without permission. Back on air, DBC's signal was stronger than ever. The raids only made it mythic. Artists sent demos, youth tuned in from rooftops. DBC became a lifeline. It wasn't just music, it was identity. When Miss P took the mic, she didn't just play records. She spoke to a generation that had never been heard. Her rhythm was education, her words were empowerment. The world beyond the studio began to notice. In 1984, after years of pirate defiance, the BBC came calling. It was unthinkable they wanted her, the rebel DJ from a pirate station. And so, Ranking Miss P became the first black female presenter on BBC Radio 1. What began as an act of rebellion had reshaped the establishment. She didn't abandon her roots. She brought them with her, right into the heart of British broadcasting. In 1985, she wrote and performed the theme song for Ebony, the BBC's first program dedicated to black culture. That same year, she launched Culture Rock Radio 1's first ever reggae exclusive show. On the anniversary of Bob Marley's death, she hosted a full tribute episode, her voice trembling with emotion as she spoke of her brother-in-law, her family, her roots. That moment wasn't just radio, it was history echoing through the air. But while Margaret broke into the mainstream, Lepke remained the movement's underground pulse. He wasn't made for suits and studios. He preferred the back rooms, the late nights, the community gatherings. Even after DBC was shut down in 1984, he continued advising new stations, Time Radio, JBC, Traffic Jam, Radio Star in Birmingham. Every time one fell, another rose. The fire wouldn't die. Pirate radio had become more than protest. It was a lifeline for a generation locked out of representation. Ads came in from black-owned shops, local clubs, hairdressers, Caribbean restaurants, ordinary people supporting extraordinary defiance. Britain's airwaves, once colorless, now pulsed with reggae, dancehall, dub, and soul. When Shabba Ranks and Cocoa Tea released Pirate Anthem in 1989, it wasn't just a hit, it was a salute. The song honored men like Lepke, who had risked freedom for the right to be heard. "Dem call we pirate," Shabba chanted, "but we spread the culture." It was a declaration, a rhythmic protest, and an eternal thanks to those who had paved the way. Years passed. The underground became legend. Lepke's hair grew silver, but his fire never dimmed. He remained a teacher, a cultural soldier, building from the ground up. His friends called him stubborn, others called him fearless. But to those who knew him best, he was a freedom fighter with a turntable. On March 14th, 2018, Leroy Lepke Anderson passed away at the age of 63. His funeral was not filled with cameras or politicians. It was filled with music, his music, the sound of rebellion. Old friends from DBC days gathered, swapping stories of raids, of laughter, of nights when they broadcast barefoot just to feel the hum of the floor. They called him the Godfather of Pirate Radio, a title he had never claimed but had more than earned. Ranking Miss P still lives in the United Kingdom, her legacy woven into every black voice that now finds its way onto British air. Her story is no longer confined to DBC, it echoes in the BBC, in streaming playlists, in the rhythm of cultural acceptance she helped birth. She became proof that rebellion, when rooted in purpose, can rewrite history. And across the ocean, Rita Marley, the matriarch, the Empress sits surrounded by the next generation. Her grandchildren call her Nana Rita. Her laughter still carries the same warmth that once filled Tuff Gong Studios in Kingston. After surviving a stroke in 2016, she moved to Miami to recover, leaving behind her second home in Ghana, where she had lived for 2 decades and proudly become a citizen in 2013. There, She had planted trees, built schools, and funded dreams, proof that her love for Africa was not just spiritual, but tangible. Yet no matter where she resides, Rita's heart never left Jamaica. She preserved Bob's home at 56 Hope Road, transforming it into the Bob Marley Museum, a sanctuary for music, memory, and movement. Visitors from every corner of the world walk those halls, hearing not just Bob's voice, but hers, and by extension, the quiet echo of two siblings who fought their own revolution far away in London. Together, their stories form one great composition, three harmonies, born of one family, one struggle, one faith. Rita sang for the world's awakening. Lepke fought for its voice. Miss P carried its message beyond borders. If you listen closely, you can still hear them. In the crackle of an old radio, in the hum of a reggae bass line, in the laughter of a London youth who doesn't know he's living inside their legacy. It is the sound of rebellion, of unity, of survival, a reminder that music was never just entertainment, it was resistance, love, and the most powerful weapon the oppressed ever held. Long after the transmitters went silent, the frequency remains alive. It moves through generations like a whispered promise. As long as there is rhythm, there will be revolution. As long as there is truth, there will be sound. And as long as there is reggae, the voices of Rita Marley, Ranking Miss P, and Leroy Lepke Anderson will never fade. Now you know the truth about Rita Marley's rebel siblings. Tell me which part of their story surprised you the most. Let me know if you were aware of this hidden chapter in the Marley family history. Share your thoughts on whether their illegal actions were justified in the comments. Make sure to follow for more uncovered stories about music's most secret rebellions.